Salam, hörmətli tamaşaçılar, 21-ci əsr proqramı efirdədir.
Hello, you're watching 21st Century.
MTP klubunun, yəni dünyanı ən çox gəzmiş...
This time our guest is the founder of MTP, Most Traveled People Club, Mr. Charles Veley.
Charles Veley'dir.
Mr. Veley, welcome to our program.
Thank you, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Və sizi Bakıda, Azərbaycanda da görməkdən salam.
Very pleased to meet you in Baku, in Azerbaijan.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Hər peşənin öz xüsusiyyəti var, cənab Veley. Məsələn, biz də proqrama hazırlaşanda nələrsə üzərində düşünürük, necə eləyək?
Mr. Veley, each profession has its own specifics. For instance, when preparing the program, we're thinking over various details and first steps. For sure, the travelers do the same. So what is your starting point?
I didn't get to travel very much as a child. My family didn't have very much money, and so I studied maps. I collected stamps, so I learned about the world that way. I studied software, and then when I got the chance and had some money, then I started traveling to all the places that I couldn't go before.
Siz qırıcı təyyarə pilotu olmalıydınız və Amerikanın ən nüfuzlu hərbi məktəblərindən birində oxuyurdunuz.
You should have become a fighter jet pilot and studied at one of the most prominent military schools in the United States. Suddenly, you changed your mind and profession.
So yes, it's true. I earned a scholarship from the U.S. Air Force to attend Harvard University. They paid for my tuition. However, when I went in to become a pilot, they found a hole in my retina, in my eye. So actually I was physically grounded, and even though I was supposed to go in for 10 years, at that time the Air Force said, it's okay, we'll let you go. So I was able to go out into the civilian world. It was really quite lucky for me.
Təsəvvür eləyin, siz bu peşəni seçərkən hansısa qaynar nöqtələrdə, müharibələrdə iştirak eləməli olacaqdınız.
Just imagine that you should have participated in some wars, visit some hot spots. Your health prevented it. Are you happy with this or sorry about it?
I have mixed feelings because this was a long time ago. As for which college, it was Harvard University, so it wasn't a military university, but I went and did military courses with the Air Force at the same time. So this was the time, long ago, the time of the first Top Gun movie. And so I wanted to be like Tom Cruise at that time. Now we have a new Top Gun movie. I'm happy for Tom Cruise to do that. I don't need to do that anymore. I did go some years later after I finished the military, and I got my private pilot license and my instrument license. And that was enjoyable, but that's enough for me.
Bildiyim qədər 3-cü dəfə Bakıda, Azərbaycandasınız. 2002-ci ildə, hardasa 20 il bundan əvvəl ilk dəfə olmuşsunuz, sonra...
As far as I know, you're visiting Azerbaijan already third time. First time you were here in 2002, almost 20 years ago. The second visit was last year, and this is the third one. So could you compare those impressions?
Well, I think that overall, you know, any traveler has to be impressed with Baku, with how the country has modernized over this time, and about the more I meet the Azeri people, the more impressive they are. All right, you just look around. Look, we're sitting here with the flame towers, and you have the old, the new, and so it always seems to me that Azeri people are working hard and that they have a good plan for the future. So with regards to Karabakh, what we saw last year was really, you know, the aftermath of 30 years of Armenian occupation. We see for Agdam, for example, really nothing there, but good plans to build new smart cities there, for example. Shusha, we see a beautiful old city that needs some repair. So I noticed that even immediately following this conflict, already had built a new road, not even on Google Maps, new road up to Shusha. And just lots of progress.
Siz dünyanın demək olar hər yerində olmuşsunuz. Və bu baxımdan sizin deyəcəyiniz çox önəmlidir. Siz ötən il Ağdamı gəzdiniz, Şuşanı gəzdiniz.
You have traveled all around the world, and from this perspective, your words are of high importance. Last year you visited Shusha and Agdam, so the totally destructed town. To which tragedy could it be compared to?
The only place that I can think where I saw, it's a bit different, but the only place I can think of recently, I went to visit Mosul in Iraq, very recently after that conflict, and so you see whole neighborhoods that are just rubble. Now that's a larger city, not like Agdam, but yeah, there aren't many places in the world where you've had someone occupy for 30 years and then pushed out. So I think one of the points that they wanted to make in the last visit was, look, why didn't Armenians build something nice here? They have 30 years to build something. So why not just leave it like this?
Cənab Veley, çox sağ olun. Siz indi biz oturduğumuz yerdən bəzi Bakının görüntülərinə işarə elədiniz. Doğrudan da Bakıda
Thank you, Mr. Veley. You've just pointed to some areas of Baku visible from here. Now we can observe 3 historical periods. We are now in the old city, can watch Soviet period buildings, the modern Baku. I have read in your biography that you were born in Brooklyn and spent your childhood there. What Brooklyn is about? There are so many opinions about that location. Everyone who visited the United States tells his own story. What is it for you as a person who used to live there?
Orada yaşamış 18 yaşına qədər. Nədir Brooklyn? Çünki o yer haqqında ən müxtəlif fikirlər var. Hər gedən səyyah, Amerikaya səyahət edən adam, Brooklyn'də olan adam, hərənin öz təəssüratı var. Siz orada yaşamış adam kimi, nədir sizin üçün Brooklyn?
Well, Brooklyn will always be sort of the bedroom of Manhattan, of New York City. There are people living there. Brooklyn also changed quite a bit from when I lived there as a child. When I was a child, we were the only family not Italian in our neighborhood. It was only Italian people, pizza, Italian food. Now it's many upscaled, gentrified kind of places. It's a much different place, but I would say that probably New York has the most development where you can see new buildings next to old. In the United States, these projects don't get done so quickly. We have many different competing interests in government, and has to be more consensus. I think some of the benefit of having a small country with a strong government is that things will get done more quickly. You can do big projects like this more quickly. So Brooklyn is like maybe a little bit like this, but they can't move as fast as Azerbaijan, really.
Brooklyn'də böyümək, o qarışıq mühitdə...
Growing up in Brooklyn, spending childhood in such a mixed environment is part of your life. Did you have scuffles those times between the neighborhoods or streets?
Like West Side Story. This is what I saw some things happen between Italians and Puerto Ricans, actually, and there was one black family lived on our block, and some guys came and burned their house down. I had friends that I was playing with. Their house was burned down. They had to leave. So there was some, and it was mafia neighborhood. So like Godfather. This is serious. So I see these kind of things. I lived in Brooklyn from age 6 to age 11. So that at 11 we went across to New Jersey, then across to Connecticut. Always bigger houses, more trees and forests. So gradually, bit by bit, out of the city. But yeah, I have some strong memories of the world is not always perfect in Brooklyn.
Uşaq vaxtı xəyallara dalırdınız, otururdunuz atanızın avtomobilində və özünüz üçün hansısa xəritələr cızırdınız səyahət haqqında.
You were dreaming in your father's car, watching the maps, thinking about some travels. What was that dream destination?
I think I remember specifically being in the car because I had the road atlas that I was looking at was just North America. So it was US and Canada. I was really dreaming about being in like the Rocky Mountains in Canada and turning the wheel as I'm looking down at the map like this. So obviously not even tall enough to see out the windshield. But when eventually I got to drive in the Rocky Mountains in Canada, yeah, it's pretty beautiful. So one of my favorite parts is British Columbia and Vancouver Island. That is really some of the most beautiful country in the world. So I'm glad I studied the map. So when I was a child, you know, my name is Charles. My middle name is Adams. My parents called me Chad. C-H-A-D, Chad. There's a country called Chad. So whenever I look at the globe, I say, look, this is my country, it's Chad. And I was wondering, what does it look like? Later, when I arrived, at that time was very, very poor. The people at the border were not friendly. It was difficult to get a visa. And I didn't feel very welcomed. So that's one where I was disappointed. I thought, you should welcome me. It's my country, right? But it didn't turn out to be that nice. I think it's improved in the recent years, but that was a disappointment.
O uşaq vaxtı xəyal elədiyiniz o gözəl ölkə, ümumiyyətlə adam adətən xəyal eləyəndə daha yaxşı şeyləri xəyal eləyir. Xüsusən uşaqlar, onların fantaziyaları çox gözəl olur.
The beautiful country you were dreaming about in your childhood. Usually dreams, especially those of children, are beautiful and bright. Where did you find that destination later?
I think the very first time that I arrived into Tahiti, I had studied in college about the history in Tahiti and arrival of Captain Cook and things like that. And it was the first time I went to any Pacific island. I was 19 years old and arrived to Moorea, this is the island across from Tahiti. And I spent 1 week in Moorea, and it's just very, very beautiful tropical island. So I was very fascinated. And in that trip, I was at the Club Med with a couple other guys. We sneaked into the Club Med where they had a party, and we were dancing in the party. And who is next to me? Maradona. Maradona just finished winning the World Cup for Argentina, and I couldn't see him because he's only this tall. But someone said, "Hey, that's Maradona." So this was a very good experience on the island of Moorea.
Ən yaxşı mətbəx hansı ölkə?
Which country possesses the best cuisine, as per your personal opinion?
To be a great traveler and go all the way around the world, really, you must be open to eating just about anything. And so I'm very lucky that I have a taste where I can eat just about anything. Even the famous fermented shark in Iceland, which smells so bad, I can eat that. So there's not one cuisine that I say is the best out of everything. Here's the ones that I really like. Let's say Mexican, Turkish, Japanese, Thai. Yeah, I would say those are probably my 4 top cuisines. And but I would eat just about. Oh, Italian also, because I grew up in the Italian neighborhood. So that's 5. I'll give you 5.
Ən dadlı.
Tell me the best water that you have drunk, please.
Well, I've been to the place on Fiji where Fiji water comes from, but they won't let me inside to drink. And they actually, the place around smells like diesel smoke because they're just driving big trucks of water. So that was a disappointment on the Fiji water. But you know, the water is very good at my mother's farm in West Virginia when I was growing up. So very pure water from there.
Dünyanı gəzdikcə adamlarla tanış olursunuz, xalqların adət ənənəsi ilə tanış olursunuz, millətlərin dili ilə tanış olursunuz, musiqisi ilə tanış olursunuz, incəsənəti ilə tanış olursunuz.
You get to know new people regularly along with traveling, new traditions, languages, musics and arts. Is there any culture that you envy, something that you wanted to be a part of?
It's difficult to walk around Rome, ancient Rome, and not want to be in that center of power where they controlled the entire known world at the time. And especially if you go to the island of Capri, this is where Tiberius decided to move the government to his summer house, sitting on top of the cliff. Yeah, I'm pretty jealous for someone that can just say, I'm going to rule the world from this beautiful island. I was pretty jealous of that.
Sizin haqqınızda yazılır, belə fikirlər deyilir. Suvenir yığmır, fotoşəkil çəkmir.
It is written that you do not collect souvenirs, do not take photos or notes. Why?
Yeah, I think that this is maybe a little bit old information, but I really, so the reason I don't purchase souvenirs is because then I have to carry them around. And so only very few things do I take if it can be very meaningful. And so I'm not like one of those travelers, you go to their house and you see 10,000 African masks all on the wall. It's not for me. I rather collect the memories. So these days I do take much more photos because it's much easier with the iPhone. And I do some more writing because it's easy to post on Instagram or Facebook. Before it was, you know, kind of a pain to do those things. So things have evolved, but still I would rather have the natural experience than try to contort my experience around getting just the right selfie and taking 100 times a selfie instead of, you know, talking to someone or just enjoying the view.
Siz daha çox hansı nəqliyyata üstünlük verirsiniz? Bu təyyarədirmi, avtomobildirmi, yoxsa velosipeddir?
What kind of transport do you prefer? Is it a plane, a car or a bike?
I should say bicycle and walking is the best, but reality is that if I want to be in Baku and I'm coming from San Francisco, I can do it in 24 hours through Istanbul or through Doha or through Dubai. Sometimes you have to do it that way. Now, how do you experience the most? You know, if you like more things than just airplanes and airport lounges, then I think by car. I really think by bicycle, unless you're a superhuman bicyclist, you won't get to see as many things. So I prefer car, and I prefer to drive myself because I think you learn much more about the geography when you're finding your own way. You have to read the signs. You have to have some sense of where you're going. So that is my preference. I love a good driving tour. Just when I was a small child, pretending that my dream came true for driving.
Təbii ki, minlərlə, milyonlarla kadrlar görürsünüz, səhnələr görürsünüz səyahət zamanı. Sizə ən çox təsir eləyən elə bir səhnə.
During your travels, you see thousands, even millions of pictures, landscapes and sceneries. Which of them touch you most that you still remember and something that influenced your worldview? Can you recall such a case?
You know, of course, there are hundreds of experiences that I can recollect if I take all day, but just off the top of my head, you know, a lot of the land area of the world is remote islands, and so one of my specialties is that I have gone to places that it can be uninhabited or just difficult to get to, and really include all the land in the world. And some of these places, when you go, you realize that you're the only person that's going to be there for that year or maybe for 5 years. However, there's massive wildlife, seals or penguins or birds. They're living there every day, like in their own world. And you realize how selfish we are to think that this is not a place when it's really like a center for other forms of life. And when you see penguins sliding down an iceberg and taking turns like children at the playground. You never forget that. You can just sit and watch them all day long. I have another one that I thought of. So there's a place called the Kingman Reef. It's in the Pacific Ocean, and it's classified as an island because it's big enough, but really it's just a pile of rocks. And you're standing there in rocks and coral, and the nearest other land is 33 miles away. It's a place called Palmyra Island. Have few people and vegetation on Palmyra Island. So, looking around on this Kingman Reef, we see some coconuts, small coconuts, and the coconut is trying to grow. So you see the sprouts coming out of the coconut. There is no way this coconut is going to survive on this place. And I sit there and I'm thinking, okay, what's happening? This coconut floated for 33 miles. How many thousands of coconuts are floating all around from Palmyra Island, and these few just happen to land here? And by God, they're trying to grow. And this coconut has, it's like a perfect shape for a boat. It has its own food, and it arrives and it sets down roots, and it's just like a little life basket. So I'm thinking, it touched me deeply that I think I really saw like the life force. If you believe in some God or you don't believe in God, you have to be so impressed with nature. Like, oh my God, these coconuts, how did they come? And they're really going to try and grow. They will fail, but this is life force going on. That was...
Cənab Veley, sizin ailənizdə 3 evlad böyüyür və siz uzun günlər,
Mr. Veley, you have 3 children, and you are away for long periods, days and months. Do they tell you, we are missing you, Dad?
Yeah, it's difficult to balance the kids. Normally, so my kids now are 18 years old, 16, and 14. So they're at the age where they just say, bye. They don't say, we miss you. They say goodbye. But it's my ex-wife who calls and says, I need your help. When are you coming back? I need your help with these kids. So, but it's always difficult with balancing with the kids. I think they used to be a little bit more sweet about missing me.
Dünyanı gəzəndən sonra
Didn't the world become less attractive after traveling? So did your interest decrease?
No, because places are always changing. Look at Baku. We're going to Karabakh. It's going to be different this year than it was last year. If you go around China, it's like visiting a new city every year. There's so much change. Even if you go to the same place, there's the time dimension of change. So certain people may get bored. I don't get bored. There's always new things, new people to meet, and it's always interesting for me.
Sizə Cənab Veley uzun və sağlam.
I wish you a long and healthy life. Mr. Veley, have you ever thought about it? I would like to live at a specific location when I get older. Where is that?
Well, first of all, I agree with you, and I wish myself a long, healthy life. So thank you for that. If I had to retire just in one place, then it would probably be somewhere around San Diego, California, La Jolla, maybe in Hawaii. But I really don't see staying just in one place. So I hope to be able to travel as long as I can. I had both of my hips replaced, titanium now. So I can't run the way I used to, but I can walk, and if I need to get all the parts of my body replaced to keep traveling, I will do that.
Əgər sizdən Amerikada və yaxud digər yerdə başqa bir jurnalist soruşsa ki,
What would your answer be if a journalist somewhere in America asked you about Baku and what it is for you?
I would tell him you need to go there, that it will surprise you, that maybe you didn't even think of Baku before, but it's a very beautiful city with old and new and wonderful people and wonderful food. So the very first time I came to Baku was in 2002. The thing that I remembered the most was all of this old oil well equipment that was over towards the Caspian Sea. It was like a graveyard of Soviet oil stuff. And I thought, wow, this is really like post-apocalyptic place. And then when I came back next time, it was completely changed. And you can't even see that stuff anymore. I tried to find it and I couldn't find it anymore. So everything is cleaned up. And yeah, I would tell the journalist, go to Baku.
Cənab Veli, bir daha çox sağ olun.
Thank you once again, Mr. Veley, for your interview to Azerbaijani television. Welcome once again to Azerbaijan, to Baku. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to meet you. I understand you're a very important celebrity, and so the honor is all mine.